Morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay. It's 8:26 in the morning, March 27th. Welcome to my channel. Now, of course, this crazy market, we are gapping down again. Okay. Trump extends the deadline. Markets don't know who's telling truth. Crude is up to $97 a barrel. The VIX is up to almost 29.58. Okay. Yesterday, the markets kind of, ES in particular, we can look at it here together. Okay, we opened here, pushed up, filled the gap. Now this is a 30-minute chart, and we just kind of ranged. Trump was talking, right? And at this point, the market kind of looked bullish. Okay, now there was a level that I talked about in my pre-market. I talked about the 68.20s. Now at this time, once that level was hit, I wanted more of a sweep a little bit for me to short, and there was nothing there really for me to do because I didn't get the normal, because this looked very bullish at this point. So I was like, am I just going to short it because it went to my level? And then what happened was we wound up falling, and then we started barcoding and moving sideways again because Trump was talking. There was a lot of news going on. That's what's been going on with our market. Okay. And then you finally had a push, and then it moved sideways again. And then it finally started to drop and move sideways again, and then dropped. And then Trump said something positive that spiked the market all the way back to the open. Okay. Very hard markets to trade, not because I can't read it, because of the unpredictability of like news. So I did get a short. Okay. We'll drop it down into a smaller time frame just to show you guys the short that I took. Okay, let's go down to do just the SPY. Okay, let me see if I could even show you better on a 5 minute. No, this is pretty good. All right, so my short yesterday. Okay, and the reason why markets were particularly weak in tech and semis was Google came out and said that they found that they have some kind of technology or whatever that can use less chips for AI. That took down semis yesterday. Okay? Now, all that was already baked in, and you can notice QQQ never filled the gap at all. That was why. Okay, but the ES did, SPY did. So once this happened, look at this low. We came down, made a low, made another low, made another low, made another low, right? So on this push here, now I traded this in ES, okay? I short it right here, okay? And at the same time, let me see if I can show you this. Yes, okay, I believe at the same time, I'm going to show you NVIDIA, okay? Let me make sure right there, okay? So NVIDIA had a little rally. And it went right into VWAP. Okay, I was watching that, and I said that's probably a good shot. This market could roll over now. Okay, so back to the SPY. Okay, so I shorted that little pop. Right, I'm sorry, here, and I went and I targeted. Okay, let me bring you into a better chart here. Let me see if I can get one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I want to give you guys the best thing here. Give me a second here. I'm going to bring you guys up to my chart here in futures. Okay. So my initial target, like I said, let me give you guys one little thing here. My initial target, so here's it. So when this had this low, and I like to, you can call it equal low in ICT, I like to call it a poor low, this was going to get broken. It just was a matter of time. And so when the market pushed up, I think it was here, I got short and I targeted actually the 74s, which was the overnight lows, right? But when we broke through this low, you see you had a violent wick up that got me. So I still got a 3-hour trade on the short based on this setup. It just was gonna break these lows. Okay, so you could see the 73s was a previous low. So I was looking at that right there, and it did wind up hitting it. It's just that it got me, and I actually added in my trade as well. So I just wanted to share you guys that setup's pretty good setup. You just got to wait for the right pullback to short it. Okay, so that was a good trade, and that's all I did yesterday. It's all I did. Okay, so wanted to share that with you guys. Okay, give me one sec while I rearrange my stuff again. Okay, so with that being said, that was my only trade yesterday. Now, yesterday didn't really have a great setup because look at this price action. That is weird. That's because of this news was going on. Just that's weird. Markets don't usually look like this. And then you broke. And then it like went sideways. And then it was just like went broke and it broke and broke. All right. So there was one little setup here I saw right there that pop up. And I was like, you know what? I don't like shorting near the bottom, even though it might work. I didn't know, right? So that was yesterday, which is like I said, these are weird days, and you have to find a piece in the market that you have an edge, and that was one of my edges. I was like, all right, I know a pullback. I just have to pick the right one to short, and that was all for me. I mean, 3R is not a bad day. I mean, can't complain about that. Okay, not. But I had shorts. My short setup worked. My long setup worked in my scenarios. Okay. All right. Now today we have Michigan consumer sentiment. Okay. Crude actually just pushed down a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Okay. So let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and buying profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. Okay. Once the market opens up, I like to use market internals. That's my bread and butter. A little ICT thrown in there, and then a bunch of volume profile stuff that I used to short yesterday, as well as expected moves that you can get for free in my Discord. Of course, I talked about the gamma exposure levels that you can get those, the gamma flip points every day in my Discord. Okay. Now, hopefully you join me every day. Give you the market story, economic calendar, market news, technical analysis, and give you the long and short trade scenarios at NASDAQ and the ES futures. Okay, that usually is at the end of the stream. Okay, now, you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Now, lately, real quick, go to my Discord. I've been nailing these scenarios. Okay, and you can see them every day in the daily receipt channel right there. Boop. And you can see pre-market results. My scenarios, I've been nailing them. Now, they don't always set up for a trade. Like yesterday, I was like, oh man, I even said here, where was I saying here? Yesterday, was that yesterday, right? That's the 26th. Look right here, overall read, ES filled the gap, now in supply, 6620s are key, tricky for sure, and that was it. That was part of my short, but like it didn't set up. It was just a weird market. there was so much news going on, right? So that's that. All right. Now we're going to get right into futures watch list here in our crazy markets. Okay. So the VIX is up 8.27%. Okay. We're at 29.71 VIX. That's going to be very volatile today. Crude's up 2.57% at $91 a barrel. 10-year yield. Okay. If you look at 10-year yield, it kind of goes with crude. Up 1.16. This is going to not be good for mortgage rates. Gold up 1.06. Dollars up 0.22. Silver's flat. Dow is down 0.43. ES down 0.5%. 30-year bonds down 0.5%. Russell down 0.68. Nasdaq's down 0.74. Bitcoin lost 70K. It's down 2.82. Ethereum down 3%. Mag 7. Believe it or not, Netflix is up 1%. They are raising their prices. So the market likes that. Okay. So they're the lone winner today. 1%ers. Microsoft down 1%. Google down 1.24. Okay. Coinbase down 3.18%. That's the Bitcoin proxy. All right. Moving on to top sector stocks. PepsiCo up 0.05. Remember, that's a staple. Johnson & Johnson's also looked like a safety play. Who's down? Decent. Caterpillar down 0.74. Salesforce down 0.88. Oracle down 1.76. And Palantir down 1.91%. Okay, going to the sectors. Okay, the only positive is energy. That makes sense. And then we have financials down 0.29. Discretionary down 0.38. Semiconductors down 0.81. And technology down 0.92. The largest market cap weighted sector in the S&P 500. Okay, now we're going to move on to the economic calendar. We do have news that generally moves markets. You have Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 a.m. Okay. Then all about the news today is Trump pushing the deadline back. They might call that Taco Trump or whatever when he chickens out. So who knows? Let's see here. Right here it says U.S. stocks were on track for their longest weekly losing streak since 2022 as traders grew increasingly uneasy about prolonged Middle East conflict while China escalated its trade dispute with the U.S. bonds declined globally. Okay. Now there's not, let me just refresh this because Trump's schedule today, it's all to be determined, close press at 8 a.m. So he probably will talk sometime today. President delivers remarks to farmers. That says closed press at 12:30. We'll have to see if there's anything else on his schedule. Okay. Now let's see what U.S. judge blocks Pentagon's Anthropic blacklisting for now. Let's see here. Chinese top chip maker has supplied chip making tech to Iran military. Netflix raises subscription prices across all plans. Okay. And U.S. stock index futures were muted as investors assessed prospects of de-escalation in the Middle East after another delayed deadline for U.S. strikes on Iran's energy infrastructure. All right. That, my friends, is the news of what's going on, which changes minute by minute. Now we're going to get right into your market internals, recap my bread and my butter. Now, yesterday, look at tech down 2%. From the open, that's what's key here. Okay. Now, the overall market equal weight was not as weak as the market cap, but market cap is the way our market moves. So the bars represent the way the market moves based on market cap weight. That's how the SPY will move. Equal weight is just a barometer to show me what the overall market is doing, and it just wasn't as weak. Okay. You could even see in the ADD was at minus 125. That's not even that weak. Okay. But tech was weak, so that's what drives the market down. Okay. Now, moving on to our daily charts. Okay. So, yesterday, look what we did here. Look what we did here. You know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to change that setting here. Instead of being black, I think I'm going to change that now. Sorry for this. It's just bothering me because of that black. Let's see, SPY close. Let's just change that. There we go. One more change, folks. Just want to do the Qs as well. All right. That makes a lot more sense to me now. So we can see it together. All right, give me one sec here. Okay. So, let's look at this again. That's Friday's close. Last week's close. So, we are negative for the week now. So, up until this point, when we were falling, I was like, there's nothing changed for this week yet. Nothing's changed. And then what did we do? We went back and we tapped last week's lows. We held it. Okay? But today we are down to 642. We are down, gapping down. Okay, let's get into where that brings us. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, we are down to 642 right here. So there's big support pretty much around 635s. Okay, and then the anchor VWAP from last year, 631. So that's your zoomed out view. Let's go futures. That's future. Give me one sec, folks. All right, so there's futures. Now, futures have this swing low here that still hasn't taken it out. Okay, that's last week's lows, 65.22. We are through that, but this swing low here is still intact. Okay, still intact. So Qs. All right, there's last week's close. That went right through it like a hot knife through butter. Through last week's lows, a lot weaker, right? That's the semis I was talking about. Now we're at 570 basically. Zoom out, 570. If you look to the left here, there's some support here at the 570s, right around here. Okay, you got the anchored view up from last year around 563, call it 564. Major support around the 559s. 559s. Okay, I don't know if we make it down there, but we're at 570s right now. Okay, futures. Last week's lows, that was the resistance in this session, came back up, touched it, broke this double low here, and we're just pushing down. Okay, pushing down. All right, that's what we got going on in our markets right now. Okay, there's our breath. Smell that breath of the market. It's still not as weak. It ended at 22%. It ended at 22%. Okay, so we were weaker on this low, but still pretty frothy to the downside. Okay, now we're going to move over to hourlies. This is your hourly chart. Okay, so let's talk about the ES hourly here. We are in major demand zone here. Okay, with a major support at 64.80s. Okay, you can see the last 4 hours pretty bearish. The daily bearish. Okay, in this market, the way this was moving was disgusting. but you're consolidating, dropping, consolidating, dropping, consolidating, dropping. That's a healthy way to move down. It's not just going boom, boom, boom. But this move is the first. Well, with this move is the first kind of like boom, 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 boom. So you do have somewhat of a little poor structure into this demand zone. You're kind of double bottoming here with the prior swing low here. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen here. Now, the whole time this market's been moving down, this whole time it's been kind of a grindy move down. It has not just been this chaotic push like, oh my God, market's dropping every day. It's crazy. It's not like that. Like I said, we just are barely negative for the week. So you forget this Trump euphoric candle, we finally took it back. Remember, I talked about it in my scenarios just yesterday. I said we could bottom here, and that's exactly was the bottom. Okay, so the only way we got to look at this, right, is do we lose the 6480s? All right, that's what my eye is going to be on. Is do we take out and close below this area? If we cannot, you probably have a decent long on your hands. Okay, and just concentrate on this 6-hour supply zone up here, or I think it's an 8-hour actually, at 65.34. Okay, that could be where the market has trouble if you do get a rally. So be aware of that. To the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ member is relatively weaker now. Okay. So you broke a major demand zone in the NASDAQ. That's why I don't have it here. Okay, you can see the 239s I talked about yesterday was a pullback around them. Tapped the previous week's lows, and now we've been selling off pretty easily. Boom, 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 hourly candles, right? This doesn't have too much support below it. And we'll get into the support below it. Now look, the market's about to take out this make new lows. Okay, now if I zoom out, let's zoom out. There is a major demand zone that starts at 23482. 23482. Okay, so we might have to wait till that gets touched. Now you do have a major supply zone, an 8-hour one, right here. That is 238.04. So 238's major supply. So if you get a rip roaring rally into there, I would say, oof, that's not going to be easy to take that out. Okay. Now look, we're pushing down. I think you got a good shot at nailing that demand down there at 23483s. Okay. Tech is really weak, especially with that semi news. It's just money's coming out of there again. The money was flowing in there, and now it's coming out again. Right? Anthropic. So there's two things this week with that. Forgot to mention that earlier. Anthropic with Claude, now they can control your computer, be like an agent like OpenClaw, is also causing a problem with the news from Google saying they now can figure out how to use less chips with AI. So this is all kind of negative right now. Okay? That is your hourlies. Now, what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you guys some major levels to be aware of in futures because I have a longer time frame chart coming here. So I just want to give you those levels in the ES first. Okay. Let's go over to that now. Okay, so these are major levels in the ES. So first, you see there's a low volume node here from the past. Okay, that's your 6480s. Look to the left, you can see right. Do you not see that? Let me change. You know what? Let me just take this in a little more. Okay. All right. So I don't have to go that much. Okay, like that. So we're right here. Okay, we're right here now. Now I want you to notice something. The next major support is 6,400, and there's two demand zones here. And you have a high volume area from the past right around here. So if we break the 6480s, there's a good chance we're going to the 6400s. So write those down. Okay, NASDAQ. The NASDAQ. Okay, look here. We just lost a major support right here. 23736s. You look to the left, that was support 3 times here, 4 times. We lost it. Okay, that's actually a monthly low from September of last year. Now the next major support is 23490. Also lines up with that demand zone. So that major support lines up with a demand zone here. Now the next support that you need to be cognizant of as the end of this demand is 23285s. Below that, you see this, see how the volume disappears? Yeah, there's no support there in the market till at least the 227s. So there, if we break this, there's nothing holding this market back from just dropping like a stone. Okay, so those are your levels to pay attention to. Let's go back here to the market profile and volume profile. Okay, we're in like a double demand here. Right now, it's still holding the market. It's still holding the market. Okay, let's break it out. Okay, so I told you that 6480 is something you need to watch. Okay, so let's get right into scenarios here. This would be the ES short and long trade scenarios. Okay, let's mark out some levels. So we know the 6480 support is key. Okay, end of a major demand zone, end of this kind of like a swing low here. Market is gapping down, so the first level we got to mark off is yesterday's lows would be gap fill 65.17s. Okay, then look at that. The 50% retracement of yesterday is 65.69, what also happens to be the overnight highs. Okay, so let's get right into it. This market has been pretty oversold, but this market is so whippy and crazy because of crude. Okay, so we're going to get right into a long. Okay, so what I want to see is if we can take out the 6480s, and if we can close back inside this range, the overnights, put a higher low in, and let's just say the market starts to get money flows in tech in the other market cap leaders. Well, then you're going to look to take your profits at gap fill 65.17. Okay, now if you get above 65.23s, which is last week's lows, you could really take a ride up. Okay, but you're going to have problems around the 65, like what is this, 35s about. Okay, because that major supply zone is there. Okay, now if you were able to take that out, this market's going to rip. That could be a ripper, but I don't know if this market has that, being that tensions are so high in the Middle East. Okay, but this is what I'm looking for. Now, if we break the 6480s, yeah, we're probably going down to the 6440s, to this demand zone, and like I said, the last line of defense is the 6400s. I would say a long here is gambling. You could get one. It's just we're going to be very weak, and this market's going to be selling off. So I only like this play for the long. Okay, shorts. Okay, so what I do like for a short, okay, is that sweep. Just like I said, sweep the overnight lows, push all the way up into gap fill and to last week's lows. Even if you tap into the 65, 30s and change, supply that I said is major is long as you get resistance here, right? Maybe dip below the most traded price of yesterday, which happens to be last week's lows. Okay. Retest that. 65.23s, last week's lows. That's your short. You look to take out those overnight lows, or it could be the low of day. And then if you want, we could take a free ride all the way down to 64.40s. Gravy on top of that is 6400s. I probably think you get a bounce there. If that gets taken out, I'd be surprised. Okay. Now, if we gap and go, I don't like that. But if we did, the only thing I would be interested in is if we kind of like was like holding, and I see the markets getting weaker and weaker, I'm going to have to look for some kind of sweep and short that consolidation into here. But I really only have that one play that I just talked to you about. So that's the scenarios in the ES. Let's move over to the NASDAQ. Here's the NASDAQ. Okay. All right, let me break this out. Okay. Remember, we have this major demand here starting at 23483. So let's get into scenarios now for the NASDAQ long and short trade scenarios. Mark off some levels here. All right, we know we have the major demand. Okay, major demand at the 23483s. Okay, we know we have a gap down, so our gap fill is 23762s. 50% retracement of yesterday is 240s. And we have that major 8-hour supply zone at a 238s. Right there. Okay, I don't think that will be easy to get through. So let's get into scenarios. We're going to start off with the long. So same thing, but either two things here. Either we take out the overnight lows, gap and go right into that demand zone that I talked about before. Okay, I think that's the 2348s. Okay, 800s. So you could even call it the 235s to round it off. If you get a bounce, whoop, and a lower high, and the market is not that weak, and internals are like getting money flows in tech, you're going to want to ride that right up to gap fill, 23762s, and be careful here into the 238s with that major supply. Okay, I'm not sure if you can make it too much higher in here. If you do, target 239s. Okay, if you break into last week's range at the 23970s, could you make it up to 242s? Not sure. Like I said, if you did, something has to change with the war. But like I said, this market's pretty oversold, and you could get a rip-roaring rally any day. Okay. Now, we're going to go to my short scenarios. Okay. That, my friends, is, again, a sweep of these lows, a push up into gap fill, and then around the 238s, slap into that major supply zone there. If even you might have to go to the 23868s, that's the overnight VPOC, boom, you slam, you get a lower high, you short that, targeting overnight lows, or could be the low of day, and then you're going to target those 235s demand zone, and then at the end of that is like a 233. I don't know if you get that. Okay, that's really all I'm interested in there today. Today's going to be very volatile. Okay, very volatile. So be aware. Look, watch crude. All right, always got to watch crude. It's very inversely correlated. Okay. Now, smash that like button if you enjoyed that analysis. That'd be much appreciated. And hopefully you can join me every morning, give you the market story, the market news, the economic calendar, leaders and laggards, technical analysis, I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios of the NASDAQ and the ES futures. Okay. Now, if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Now, what do you get with that, right? I'm trying to make this a nicer experience. Like I said, I'm working with an AI bot, AI agent. So, first, you're going to get my scenarios. Right after the stream's done, you're going to get all my scenarios that I just said. Okay, then on the live market, I give you my reads. Okay, and when you do the live market, this is kind of a brief one, but then you go to the daily receipt, it gives you the more details. Okay, it gives you the more details. Okay, and gamma levels. I post my gamma flip point levels from my script I run, and that's get posted every morning. Those are very pivotal levels. And of course, every Monday morning, I give you my weekly expected move indicator for Thinkorswim that you could put on your charts. 70% of the time, the market, the stock, the tickers that I have in there stay within their expected range. Okay, and then the daily receipt at the end of the day, you can see all my calls, what I said all day, and then trades if I have them. I will be adding back the trades again when I take a trade. Okay, I've been doing them towards the end of the day because I usually am live. Okay, so I will be doing that as long with trade recaps, doing that again in the future as well. I'm just trying to get everything set up with my AI bot and my Discord to have a better experience for everyone. Okay, so that's it, folks, for me. All right, today's going to be a wild one. It's Friday. Expect volatility. Okay, now remember, no trade's a trade. Hope everybody has a green day, and everybody has a good weekend. All right. If I don't see you in my Discord, I'll see you on Monday morning, the YouTube live stream. All right, everybody.